Good morning, church. We are a little fewer in number than what we were last week. We had a great day last Sunday, and all of those that invited people, all of those that brought people, all of those that fixed food, all of those that sang cheerfully, all of those that listened attentively, whatever you did, if you prayed, if that's all you could do, you said, all I can do is pray for that. If you did that, we appreciate everything that was done. We appreciate the fact that you did it. We appreciate the fact that you came, that you were a part of our day. It was a marvelous day, and we appreciate everything that was done and all the hard work that was done in behalf of that day of our friends and family day. And we hope to do it sometime again in the future as well. But that reminds us of all the other activities, the fellowships and things that we have going on, and be mindful of those and be a part of those as well. We like to be in control, don't we? I like to have the remote control. That's why Suzanne has decided to go to the other room so she can get the remote control of that TV. We like to be the ones that are in control and realize that we have the final say. Mark Twain once made the statement, he says, everybody talks about the weather, but no one does anything about it. And that is a true reality. It's a reality because you can't do anything about the weather. You can talk about the weather. I saw 2 different forecasts last night for today. I'm convinced neither one of them was correct. But they still can't change it. They can talk about it, but they still can't change the weather. Why? We're not in control of it. But the reality of it is there are things in our life that we are in control of. There are things in our life that we have a say. We may have choices within that say, but we still have a say on what is to be done in what way. We have choices to make. Why? Because we are in control of certain things. Because God has given that control of those things for us to us. It's not to say that God's not in control. It's not to say that God's abdicated his throne. It's not to say that we're saying God is not over all. God is over all. And we believe that and hold to that. But yet at the same point in time, too, we do understand that God has says, well, you got to decide. It's in your hand. Well, what are some of the things that are in your hand? What are some of the things that you ultimately get to choose from that are in your hand to decide? Well, how about time? We all have the same amount of time. Time is precious. It's really what life is made of. And yet at the very same point, while time is precious, know this, you cannot buy more time. In other words, have you had days where you've had appointments and things to do, things that you wanted to get done and things that your spouse told you really needed to get done, and you realize there's not enough hours in the day? And so you would like to say, for $50, can I have another hour? And the reality of it is this is not Jeopardy. You can't. You can't buy more time. The time that we've been given is precious. And while Paul would remind the church of Colossae in Colossians chapter 4, verse 5 to redeem the time, he would also remind the church at Ephesus the same thing. Redeem the time. He says, make good use of the time. Now, let's also admit this with regards to time. How you spend your time is how you spend your time. You are in control of it. Sometimes, though, things that some folks may say, well, that was a waste of time, may be good for us. In other words, some of you may be prone to taking a Sunday afternoon nap. Most preachers aren't. But some might say that is a waste of time. But that may be a good use of time for your body. Some would say that me watching Atlanta Braves baseball is a waste of time. You Cardinal fans, I'm sorry. It's not. It's good relaxation. It's therapeutic for me. You see, it's all a matter of what is best for you. But yet at the same time, too, the Lord reminds us that we really need to, as the psalmist said in Psalm 90 and verse 10, teach us to number our days. We need to understand that we have but a little time. James said it this way. James says our life's like a vapor that appears for a short time and then vanishes away. Use the time that you have wisely. So in breaking it down, let me ask, if today really in reality is all that we have, yesterday is past and tomorrow is but a hope, today is the reality that we have. How do you spend your time today? Do you spend some of your time today with God? Do you spend some of your time today talking to God? And do you spend some of your time today letting God talk to you? Well, preacher, it's Sunday. Yeah, we had prayer and we have, you teaching and preaching. Yeah. But what about Monday? What about Tuesday? About Wednesday? About Thursday? We also think about not only time with God, but do you have time to share God with others? Do you make time to share a message from God with others? And it could be as simple as inviting somebody to church. It could be as simple as sharing a text with someone. It could, from the standpoint of biblical text, it could be sharing with them a scripture or a thought, sharing your bulletin with them, carrying your bulletin to a neighbor and saying, hey, just thought you might be interested in what's going on River Road. It could be a lot of different things with regards to that nature. But do you spend your time with God, for God? Do you spend your time, though, also not only for yourself and for God, but for others? There are times in which folks need their lives lightened. They need encouragement. They need help. We hear a lot about mental health in this day and age, and it's a reality. Let's don't deny it. It's a reality. But yet at the same point in time, too, do you try to be the Barnabas that lightens the day for an individual? Are you the heavy-handed critic? Spend your time. Spend it wisely. Spend it well. It's in your control. But a second thing that's in your control is your attitude or your disposition. What's an attitude? Well, we know what an attitude is. It's when that person looks at me and says something smart-aleck to me. It's when that person does something to me. It's when that person, if you will, cuts me off or cuts me a little short. That's when our attitude is seen. But attitude means a state of mind or a disposition towards someone or something. See, y'all were afraid that elder was coming to get me. Didn't happen. Maybe next time. That's why I slowed down. I was afraid he was. But attitude means a state of mind or disposition towards someone or something. It's really how you feel about something. And really and truly, it's really how you feel about life. Solomon said in Proverbs 18, verse 15, that a merry heart, it does good, right? But a merry heart, he says, sustains the spirit in sickness. It sustains the spirit in sickness. What is Solomon saying? He says, you need to be an individual that rejoices. You need to be an individual that realizes that in your control, you can either be grouchy or you can be happy. You choose. You choose whether you want to be grumpy or whether you want to be happy. You've heard the story probably of the individual, because you see, we don't see ourselves as we are. I was listening to the radio this weekend. It was talking about you hear me different than I hear me, just like you hear you different than I hear you. And it's the tone and the cadence and all that we all have is what they were talking about. But at the same time, too, we don't see each other the way we really are. You've probably heard about the man that came into the store and he was very grumpy and grouchy and just barking orders at the employees and just terrible. And finally, one of his friends looked at him and he said, "Did you wake up grouchy this morning?" He said, "No, I let her sleep." You see, he didn't see himself as he was. We need to see ourselves as we are. But as we look at ourselves as we are, we have to understand that attitude is important. That's why Paul would say, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 4. He would understand the importance of being an individual that has an outlook that is not, if you will, pessimistic, but optimistic. The Christian looks at things, and he should look at things optimistically. Yes, we know certain things are going to happen. We know that life's not always going to go our way. Yes, we know that we're going to have times of suffering and problems and heartaches and hurts. Yes, we know that there are going to be times in which people are not going to do what we want to do, and we can do that by simply driving down the street, and people will cut us off, and people will show us a salute that we don't like to talk about in church, and people will talk about us and they'll holler at us because we can see them through the window, and we know that, and we know that when we go in a store somebody's going to do something that maybe is going to tick us off. We know that life is not always clear sailing, smooth seas. It's all right. The Christian is an optimist. He's told to think about the good things, Philippians chapter 4. He's told to look on the good side and not be critical, Matthew chapter 7, beginning in verse 1. He's told that this is the day that the Lord has made and to rejoice and be glad in it. He's told to be happy. Why? Because he has a God that loves him, a Christ that died for him, and a salvation that's his if he will live the life that God has instructed for him to live. You see, it's in your control. What attitude do you have? Do you have an attitude of cheer? Do you have an attitude of happiness? Do you have an attitude of optimism? Or do you have an attitude of pessimism? Do you have an attitude that says, life is terrible and life is crummy and I just feel crummy all the time about it? You get to pick. You get to pick. You don't have to be influenced by what others do or what others say. You need to be, we all need to be like the little lady that they carried into the nursing home. Now, let's understand, nursing homes are not fun for those that are in there. But they carried this sweet little lady into the nursing home. They carried her into the front office, and the lady there was trying to be nice, trying to get some information. She'd already gotten a lot of information from the family. She was trying to introduce the lady to the idea of the nursing home and things that were available to her and what she would do and use and could do and use. And finally she said, just give me another minute. I need to check on this, but I need to see if your room is ready. And she said, oh, I'm going to love my room. You haven't seen it. What do you mean you're going to love your room? You may have a window that looks out to a building. And she says, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters about me and the choice I make. And the choice I make is to choose to like it no matter what. That's the attitude we need to have. But that's the attitude that you're in control of. The third thing that you're in control of is how you treat others. This is a world that seemingly is becoming more and more introverted, turning in more and more to itself. We're neglecting maybe the idea of family more. And I don't mean family from the standpoint of blood kin. I mean family from the standpoint of society family. We've gotten rid of the front porches, as I said a few weeks ago, and we've gone to back decks. That way we don't really have to see anybody or talk to anyone. We've become the idea of just give me a television and let me sit in my living room and I won't bother anybody. We've become like that. And yet, at the same point in time, too, we've become that grouchy guy that barks orders and does everything that they can to make uneasy the events of others and the lives of others. And yet the Bible tells us that we're to do nothing through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind we're to esteem others We're to be individuals that are given to the distribution necessity of others. You know, it's kind of interesting. If you look in the book of Romans, you look in chapter 12, and you look really beginning in verse 9, and what you see there is, in a lot of ways, how to handle people. And I don't mean handle in a man-handling way. I just mean how to deal with people and how to get along with people. And he talks about giving to those that have need. You go on down, he talks about if it be possible as much as lies in you, live peaceably with all men, verse 17. And he talks about then in that last part of that chapter, don't recompense to no man evil for evil, provide for things honest. And then he talks about if your enemy hungers, feed him. If he thirsts, give him water to drink. For in so doing, you'll heap coals of fire upon his head. And then you get to the 13th chapter, and he says there in verse 10, or verse 8 rather, he says, "Oh, no man nothing but to love one another." It's kind of interesting that Paul concludes this wonderful epistle, very technical and sometimes very difficult to understand, all this idea of justification and Abraham and how all this fits with us. And Paul says, you need to look about how you're treating others. You need to think about being kind one to another. You need to think about being compassionate one towards another. You see, you handle the way you deal with people. I shared with you Wednesday night, some of you had a little emergency this week. Most of you know I had a little sty on my eye that it had become a cyst, as my general doctor said, and I had an appointment Tuesday to get it removed. And the doctor I will recommend highly, wonderful guy, really good, explained to me every step that he was doing. But then he left me with his assistant, and she told me nothing that I was supposed to do. I really just thought, well, walk out here, everything's fine. Wednesday, about 3:15, I stood up in my office for the purpose of going to the restroom, and I stood up, and evidently, according to what I was told later by a doctor, I stood up too quickly, and my eye started bleeding profusely. I'm talking about, I don't know that I've ever had something pour out of my body like that, except for allergies in my life. And I called Suzanne. She wasn't working. I said, come, we're going. Where are we going? We're going to the emergency room. So she had a wonderfully bright idea. As on the way, she said, can you call the doctor's office? And I did. And I thought, yeah, he's still there. So I called the doctor. I did not talk to him, talked to actually another doctor. Oh, no, we told you before you left. No, you didn't. And you should know that you need to do this. We told you that. And I bit my tongue because I wanted to say, no. And I even wanted to say no, but I just said, okay. And we turned around and came home. It was all right. But needless to say, when we got through and we got home and my heart quit beating 900 miles an hour, I asked Suzanne, I was nice, wasn't I? I wasn't ugly because I was really upset. I was upset that it happened, but then I was mad that I wasn't told. And I stomped around the house for a little while, but you know, I tried to be nice to my wife, but I was nice. Was I nice to these people? Was I nice to that doctor I talked to? Yeah. Okay. Well, sometimes in life, yes, sometimes you do have to be direct with people, and sometimes you do have to kind of just be blunt and be in their face. But don't do it all the time. Don't do it unless you really have to get with them. Be nice. Be kind. That poor telemarketer that's called you 15 times within the last 5 minutes, just hang up on them. That's not nice. They expect it. The individual that's rude to you in traffic, maybe because you did make a mistake, or maybe because they made a mistake and wanted to blame you, wave at them, nod your head, and go on. That neighbor that doesn't want you to mow on their property because you mow at a different height than they mow, let them have theirs. that individual that is hurting and needs an arm, give them an arm. Give them a shoulder. Give them a little love. Treat others the way, remember as we studied not long ago, what Jesus say? Treat others as you want to be treated, Matthew chapter 7. Treat others with kindness. Treat others with respect. Paul would write to the church at Thessalonica, and he says that when we came to you, we were gentle with you, even as a nurse. Be gentle. Learn to be gentle with people. Within your hand is how you treat others. Your words are within your control. You know, Solomon said, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And they are. You pick your words. You choose your words. Now, your vocabulary may not be college level vocabulary with all these long words. Mine's not. But yours might be. Choose your words, but choose them wisely. Choose them with kindness. Put away bitterness. I had a conversation this week with a good friend of mine, and right now he's very bitter. And it bothers me, it worries me, it's a concern of mine because Paul said in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31, put away bitterness. I'm not so sure that he hasn't been bitter towards others that he's talked to. And I am concerned. But he chooses his words. You choose your words. You choose them on a daily basis. And sometimes those words hurt because you intend for them to hurt. Now, sometimes they hurt and you have no intention for them to hurt. Sometimes you say things and you're thinking this way and they're thinking this way, and consequently, probably you should meet in the middle, and you don't realize that they hurt. Preacher, you hurt my feelings. What did I say? You told me to obey God. I can't apologize for that. That neighbor that doesn't like what you do, they just really don't like you, really. They still deserve a kind word, a kind thought. That individual that still needs a little smile, but they need a word spoken to them that is good and that is kind. Story is told of a man that was running through the airport with two of his other coworkers. They were trying to catch their connecting flight. It was late in the week. They'd been gone from home all week long, and they're trying to catch that connecting flight. And they run by this display of apples, and one accidentally kicks it, and the apples go everywhere. And it was a little blind girl that was selling apples. And one man stops and he says, y'all go on. I'll help her. And he helped her not only pick up the apples, but he helped her fix them in a way. He said, I'll catch another flight. I'll get home. It'll be late. It'll be all right. But y'all go on. How many times do we kick the props out from people by the fact that we said something unkind and we meant it to be unkind? Or are we like the fellow that stays and tries to help, build them up, nurture them, encourage them, strengthen them? You see, you have a choice. And within your hands are the words that you use. Choose wisely. Within your hand, within your power, is the way you live your life. You make a choice. How am I going to live my life? I'm going to live my life for the Lord. I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it. Joshua 24, we just finished in our Bible study, book of Joshua on Wednesday night. And we got down to that final speech. And Joshua called upon the people to choose this day who you're going to serve. He said, now as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. But you choose. You make that distinction. You make that choice. You have that choice. Now, we all know, Romans chapter 14, Paul tells us in verse 12 what? We're going to be judged. Who shall give an account, every man, to the Lord? What Paul said. We're going to give an account of our lives. We're going to give an account of the words that we said. We're going to give an account of the way we treated people. We're going to give an account of our attitudes and dispositions. And because our attitudes and dispositions affected all of our life, we're going to give an account of how we spent our time. We're going to give an account of everything that has been placed in our hand and our control. That's what we're going to give an account of. How did you spend your life? Did you spend it looking for the return of the Lord? Did you spend it living for him and letting your light shine? Did you spend it, as Paul told Timothy, to be an example? Did you spend it for the Lord? Did folks see Jesus in you? Did folks look at you? And as we studied here last week in Acts chapter 4, when they saw Peter and John, what did they say? They said they'd been with Jesus, verse 12. Is that what they see in your life? It's in your control. You have that choice. You choose. I can't choose for you. The elders can't choose for you. The deacons can't choose for you. The Bible school teachers can't choose for you. You choose. You choose how you live your life. Because ultimately, that's where you'll spend eternity. You'll spend eternity based upon the choices that you make in this world. Now, probably some of you have been ahead of me this whole sermon, so I'm going to bring you to this point. Moses, when he was commissioned by God, go deliver children of Israel, Moses kept making excuses. Well, God, I can't speak, and God, I can't do this, and God, I can't do that. And God, wanting to show Moses the power that he had, said, what is in thine hand? All right, well, cast it down. He did, and it became a serpent. Pick it up, and it became his rod again, or his staff. Within your hand, as it was with Moses, is your salvation. I can't make that choice for you. As I said in Bible class, I can preach to you, but I can't make you believe. I can show you the way, but I can't make you follow that path. I can show you what God says, but you have to choose. Why? Because it's in your hands. Save yourself was the admonition in Acts 2. Oh, preacher, Jesus saves me. Yes. But who does he save? Those that come to him. Those who their obedient faith are willing to confess that they believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Change the direction of their life to be baptized for the remission of their sins as they live completely holy, committed, convicted, charged with following the Lord. And do that. And are faithful for the rest of their days. Preacher, do you preach perfection? I do want to preach about God, but not about man. You see, in those choices we make, sometimes we make the wrong choices. Sometimes we mess up. To use the vulgar vernacular of today, we screw up. But we have a God that forgives. A God that says it's all right. And a God that says, let's just do better the next time. The Lord's invitation is always open. You make the choice. Will you publicly respond to the Lord's invitation? If you need to do so, won't you come? All together we stand and sing.